5. Neverseen. Sophie had assumed the Black Swan would be done with disguises now that they were letting her and her friends join. But when she reached the bottom of the murky tunnel, she found Mr. Forkel looking as shriveled and swollen as ever. His huge belly barely fit between the curved walls, and the cramped space was filled with the dirty fit stink of the ruckleberries he ate to alter his appearance. Not to complain, Kif said as he stepped into the ankle deep sludge, but you guys seriously need to pick some better hideouts. This is not our hideout, Mr. Forkel said, handling them each a pendant. They preyed on the crystals, and the warmth activated the balefare inside. The pale blue glow seemed especially eerie, but that might have been because Sophie despised balefire. The everlasting flames had been Finton's trademark until he learned to spark Everblaze. But Sophie was still grateful to have light in the claustrophobic tunnel, especially when she saw the shadowy path ahead. Well, that looks fun, Kif said, pushing Fitz forward. Lead the way, buddy. Actually, that path only goes to our demolished hideout, Mr. Forkel said. So it was at the Palazzo Vecchio, Sophie asked. No, that was marked as a decoy, but if the Neverseen found it, we knew it was only a matter of time before they located the real one. So I collapsed our grotto before I came here. Where are we going then? Dex asked. Through our emergency exit. Mr. Forkel licked one of the slime-covered bricks, opening a secret door hidden in the wall. Sophie gagged. That's gross. It certainly is, Mr. Foster. But let that be a lesson. The best places to hide are the places no one wants to go. He was right about that. The air in the tunnel smelled like eggs mixed with skunk spray, and cold slimy muck rained down on their heads as they walked. Do you know how the Neverseen found their decoy? Sophie asked. I swear it wasn't me, Keith jumped in. I threw my scented crest into the ocean, and Elwyn melted off a ton of skin, so I'm Aramark free. Remind me to thank my mom for that one, by the way. So awesome of her to let me lead my friends into ambushes. The sharpness in his tone made Sophie reach for his hand. I'm fine, he promised, but he didn't pull away. We do not blame you, Mr. Sensen, Mr. Forkel said. We assume they used Getten. We've been holding him here after he captured him on Mount Everest. But don't worry, we've relocated him to somewhere much harder to reach. And we'll figure out what enzyme they're tracking him with, so this won't happen again. Have you learned anything from him? Keith asked, voicing the question Sophie was sure they'd all been thinking. Getten was the first member of the Neverseen they'd captured. He'd also been one of Sophie and Dex's kidnappers. Not yet, Mr. Forkel said. His mind is tricky. We'll discuss it more later. Right now, I need to get you to know your new homes. I need to get you to your new homes. Sophie wasn't sure which felt stranger, trying to imagine feeling at home with the Black Swan, or the fact that he'd said homes. Are we going to be living together? Bianna asked, noticing the plural as well. Of course. Will you be living with us? Sophie asked. No, I live in the lost cities. I cannot disappear too long without someone noticing my absence. But you live with humans for 12 years, Sophie reminded him. Yes, and someday I tell you how I managed to escape anyone's notice. So wait, Dex said. Does that mean we could have met members of the Black Swan and didn't know it? I'm sure you have, Mr. Disney. Many of us are fans of your father's store. Slurps and Burps was the Lost City's most popular apothecary. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Sophie could understand how a covert group would find their serums handy, since many could alter appearances. But it was strange to think she might have passed the real Mr. Forkel shopping in the cluttered aisles. And if the Black Swan hid among them, surely the Neverseen did as well. Sophie wondered if she'd seen the rebels in the streets of Atlantis, or if their kids went to school with her at Foxfire. She ran through a mental list of possible suspects, the primary being her longtime rival, Stina Hex. As Bianna said, so basically, you're all two different people? Or three, Mr. Forkel corrected. Perhaps even 4 or 5. And yes, that can be rather challenging. He lifted his double chin, revealing a registry pendant hidden underneath. A clever technopath rigged this to communicate where I want the council to think I am, but it only covers blocks of time. Should I have done that to our pendants? Dex asked. No, you five have already drawn the council's suspicion. Better to sever your ties and seek refuge in our hideout. Any chance we'll be leaping soon? Keith asked as a blob of slime dripped into his hair. We won't be leaping. The ogres have a gadget that can follow the trail of a leap to its source. It's how they restrict entry to their cities and monitor intruders. Now that we know the Neverseen are working with the ogres, we must assume they'll try to track us. So we can't leap anymore? Fitz asked. Not here, when they're so close. The words echoed through the tunnel, turning every shadow into a cloaked figure. If they're close, why are we going after them? Kith asked. We fight the fights we can win, Mr. Sensen. Right now, the Neverseen have too many advantages. They're hidden somewhere in the city, likely somewhere with great potential for human casualties. That's why I have our transport waiting downriver, where they'd never think to look. Oh, not to ask the obvious question, Dex jumped in. But why not have us meet you there in the first place? We have reasons for working in riddles, Mr. Disney, and convenience is never a consideration. But the trail you followed was incredibly secure. Maybe if you ignore all the human technology I had to handle, Dex mumbled, and you're lucky Sophie remembered all those weird facts about Florence. Is that what you think it was? Mr. Forkel said. Luck? Sophie sighed. Exactly how many weird memories have you given me? As many as you'll need. How can you possibly know that? Fitz asked. Very careful planning. Sophie stopped walking. Planning for what? Please keep moving, Miss Foster. We do not have time for such discussions. You're seriously not going to tell her? Kip asked. Don't you think she deserves to know? She deserves many things, Mr. Forkel said. But most important, she deserves a choice. And in order to give her that choice, she must discover her purpose on her own. There are also things we must keep secret for her protection and ours. Sander always says that secrets hinder his ability to protect me, Sophie reminded him. That applies to you keeping secrets from him, not the other way around, Mr. Forkel replied. We must hurry. Our rides won't wait forever. Sophie glanced at her friends, and she didn't have to be a telepath to know what they were thinking. After all the risks they'd taken, all the sacrifices they'd made, they'd been hoping the Black Swan could be more cooperative. But it was too late to turn back. They had to keep moving forward and hope they could convince the Black Swan to work with them. She clutched the cash in her pocket, glad to know she had a secret of her own as she followed Mr. Forkel out of the tunnel. The river was empty, no people, no boats. No sign of whatever ride Mr. Forkel had arranged until he blew into a slim copper whistle. It made no sound, but the brownish water rippled. Bubbles followed, growing larger until a scaly gray-green head popped out of the water. Plesiosaurus? I'm not sure if that's right. Kith asked as 5 more dinosaur heads burst out of the water. Ecodons, Mr. Forkel corrected, though Miss Foster likely knows them as Nessie. Sophie smiled, no longer stunned when human myths turned out to be based on reality. The creatures did have long, hooked necks like the Loch Ness Monster, but their noses were a bit more pointed and long gills lined their cheeks. These are the dinosaurs that use sound vortices, right? Fitz asked. Precisely why I chose them, Mr. Forkel agreed. They will be slower than light leaping, but faster than many other methods, and the Neverseen cannot track us underwater. Underwater? Sophie repeated as he handed everyone a clear slimy membrane and told them to wrap it around their bags to keep them dry. How will we breathe? Yeah, I can only hold my breath for 15 minutes, Dex asked. 15 minutes? Sophie repeated. How can you hold your breath that long? It's a mind over matter skill, Mr. Forkel explained. One very few take the time to learn. My dad said that Stephen Nobles underestimated, Dex said. He made us practice all the time. Your father is wise, Mr. Forkel told him. Nevertheless, you will not have to hold your breath today. I brought lufterators. He passed them each a T-shaped gadget and showed how they put the longer end in their mouths and let the other piece cover their lips and nose. It felt like sucking air through a teeny straw, and it made Sophie dizzy. But after a few tries, her lungs fell into a slower rhythm. Do you have any more lufterators? Biona asked. One is all you need, Mr. Forkel assured her. Sorry. I'd still feel better if I had a spare, Bianna insisted. I can check yours to make sure it's working if you want. Dex offered. No, Bianna said, a bit too quickly. I'll just wait here and you guys can send someone back for me with another. Don't be absurd, Miss Vacker, Mr. Forkel said. We're all living now. Bianna shot Sophie a desperate help me look, but Sophie didn't understand the problem. Keith grabbed Bianna's wrist. It feels like you're hiding something. I agree, Mr. Forkel said. So let's see what it is, shall we? You don't have permission to read my thoughts, Bianna shouted. I do not need if it you're I do not need it if you're endangering us. Mr. Forkel closed his eyes, and Sophie knew there was nothing Bianna could do to stop him. Even she couldn't block him, and had designed her mind to be impenetrable. Bianna turned to her brother. Please don't let him do this. It's already done, Mr. Forkel said, staring at the empty space behind her. It appears we have a stowaway.